Event tech is always a topic of conversation around here, but as budgets get tighter, teams get smaller, and productivity is at the top of the priority list, we wanted to gather some industry CEOs of technology companies today to find out what's driving the market as we move into this busy fall event season. Back as the host of our Couch Conversations is none other than Trace Morgan. Hey, Trace, who'd you bring with you today?
Hey Liz, today we're bringing that CEO energy to the couch conversation. We have three MarTech and event tech CEOs joining us. First, we have Bharat Pharma, the CEO of Zettle. Next, we have Mark Gronowski, the CEO of G2 Planet. And finally, we have Chris Carver, CEO and co-founder of Session Board. Welcome one and all. Let's dive right in. A few days ago, I learned from Club Ichi's Liz Lathan that the MarTech 5000 is now over 12,000 companies.
Amazing.
Wow. Bharat, let's start with you. How do you think we event professionals should approach evaluating technology solutions at this point?
I guess it really starts with like the use case itself, whether in terms of like whether if you're a B2B company, whether if you're doing like a user conference or if you're doing like field events, webinars, I guess it really starts with your use case and your needs. And I guess it's like, as in, of course, like we don't have like 8,000 companies in the event tech space, but there's tons of them. And I feel like it's just like I feel like any other technology is just really hard for like any one technology provider to be solving for like needs of like for every use case and every segment out there, right? So I guess it's just really important for you to understand like which event vendor or which event tech company kind of fits your needs. So I guess the questions that like it all starts with like, are you a B2B company? Are you an association? And what your use case is, and kind of start off from there.
Love that. Focus on the use case first, for sure. Mark, when should marketers buy off the shelf versus creating a custom-built software?
I think there's a preference to always buy off the shelf if you can. It really depends upon every situation and circumstance and what your experience has been historically in dealing with software. By default, ideally you'd buy off the shelf because it keeps your costs down. But if it doesn't service your needs or depending upon what you've used in the past, I think then it makes sense to open things up and really go back to your requirements, that definition of what it is that you're looking for, and see where it maps. Ideally, you could do both. Can you find a solution that's predominantly off the shelf to keep costs down, but is architected and the business that services the software is constructed to be able to give you personalization or customization if you need it? So it really does depend on each situation and circumstance, Trace. And really, I think most importantly is the provider and what they can bring to you past the capabilities that are offered out of the box.
I am a huge fan of both, let me tell you. Yes, and is one of my favorite answers. So I love that, Mark. Thank you so much. Chris, when your software is specific to one element of the program, what do we need to consider in terms of APIs and system integrations?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things, but without sounding too obvious, the first step is really identifying that workflow from system to system and really understanding what that's going to be and what you're going to want out of it. Number two, I would always say test the integration. Number three, I think it's so critical to map the specific data points that you want to go from one system to the other. And number four, I think people often on the event side forget about this, but with integrations, it's very tough to deal with last minute changes. I mean, the system should be able to handle it, but when you're trying to really make unique changes at the last minute, that's usually when I've seen integrations go awry.
I love that. 4 steps. Document the workflow, test, map the data, and look into your crystal ball to prevent last minute changes, because I think we all know how that drives up the cost for sure. My last question, let's just go around the horn. We'll start Mark with you. Tech is so complex. Who on the team should be responsible for implementing all this?
Well, there certainly should be an identified resource, and really it depends if you're trying to solve for a point solution for a project or you're looking to implement a system with refined workflow. So depending upon the complexity of what you're really trying to do, but regardless of what that is, there should be an identified resource or individual on your team that serves as the point person, whether that's an event tech role. We're seeing that role emerge more and more in organizations. If an organization doesn't have an event tech role, maybe there's an event marketing ops role that could service in that capacity. Certainly the marketing ops kind of person or team could come in and help out. But just like anything else in life, to have responsibility and a person to go to, and if they don't know the answer, they can shepherd that question off and find the support and coordination of the team internally. But I've seen many projects fail and stutter because they don't have a point person to take the responsibility forward.
Yeah, that's a really great call out. Chris, what about you at Session Board? Are you seeing a different makeup internally on the project teams that you're working with?
Yeah, I would say two things. Implementing any tech solution is always a change management process. So having that quarterback, like Mark said, is really critical, but also making sure that there is a cohort of individuals at every step of the way, from the higher up decision-making points down to the actual users, have a say in the process. I think it being a team effort is so critical, but somebody's got to own it. I am seeing a rise in this director of event tech. You're seeing that position come up more and more over the last couple of years, which I think is a really good sign.
Definitely. Dedicated resources always are a preferred option, tends to grease the wheels in the large enterprise establishments. Bharat, last question to you, same question. Who are the internal teams that you all are working with at Zettle, and what are some of the trends there?
Yeah, so I'd say there are two teams usually. One is the team, which is the events team, which is run by the head of events. So you can think of them as the users, right? The folks that are responsible for implementing the solution, using the solution, and using the solution to deliver the outcomes that they need to drive. And then you have the marketing operations teams, which is usually responsible to make sure that the entire marketing stack works, like the event technology works with the rest of the marketing stack, right? So usually it's the two teams. And for larger companies, we also are seeing that there's an event operations person, which is like sitting inside the event team, right? But I'd say for most mid-market companies, that's not the case. That you have a separate events team and you have a separate marketing operations team. And we tend to talk to both the parties. But usually the head of events is the one that drives the decision making. And yeah, the marketing operations person is more like making sure that the integration works and making sure that you're able to kind of give them the data that they would need to kind of automate the follow-up, like the follow-up marketing campaigns as such, right? And I think that's the right way to go about it, because you can get in a marketing like operations person and you can't let them take the call on the event technology, right? Because I guess like the follow-ups and all like only make sense and only works if the event goes smoothly. Like you don't want them to kind of take a call on things like, what are the things that you need in your registration and ticketing and like for the whole show, right? There's so many nitty-gritties that it's just impossible for anyone else other than the person who's running the show and owning the show to kind of take a call on that.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys, for sharing your perspectives on these variety of issues. We're going to kick it back to Liz in the studio, and we'll keep an eye on these trends for fall.